Good evening. Good evening. I'm Charles Reynolds with my wife, and today, live for you, for to be talking about, what is it, honey? What are we going to be talking about?
Gut-brain connection.
Gut-brain connection, or how to speak to one another. And I survey not too long of you are not aware of what axis or connection is. Here by a show of hands or the chat box when you get a chance, let us know if you of the gut brain axis. How many that there's a gut, honey, I'm gonna put you on the spot. What does that?
Well, let's find out.
Okay. Hey, ladies, good to have you here. We're gut brain axis. It should be, I know, but a lot of times you don't definition of some of those terms, honey. That's why I asked. So these two, oh, you can't hear very well? Thank you. Okay, Beverly, I'm going to fix that audio so clearly, okay? To you. Right here. Mm-hmm. Okay, Beverly, let me know if you can hear me okay now.
Lisa's saying it's breaking up.
All right, is it still breaking up?
What is this?
Much better. Okay, thank you, Beverly. Appreciate that feedback from you all, keeping us straight here. All right, I am looking forward to this one, and I think once I leave the room too, honey, you have your slides up. Are they awake? I was going to say, are they awake? Are they available?
Yes, you.
Okay.
This is the shared screen.
Okay, excellent.
It's better now. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you, Nitsa. And so, honey, I'm just excited about this one because it's a connection that we don't usually hear about. So it's just something that's a little unique, having that gut-brain barrier. That's just the feedback on my machine. They can still hear you fine. Oh. All right. You need anything before I get out of here and turn it over to you, dear?
No.
Okay. We've got Janet, Nitsa, Beverly. Mom is here, Michelle, and others filing in. So I know that you all will be blessed by this presentation. And by the way, honey, let me just say this. You might wonder, why do you want to know about a gut-brain connection? Why in the world? Can I just tell you, honey, why I think we want to know about this? It's because God made your body to be in relationship. He made you to be in relationship with your family. And he made relationships within your body. And a lot of these relationships we don't even know about. And one of those relationships are the gut relationship to the brain. And if you don't understand that relationship, then you don't really know how it functions and the impact that a good or bad gut-brain relationship can have on your long-term health. Isn't that right, honey?
Amen.
All right, I got an A so far and an amen. Appreciate that, dear. And so if we understand this gut-brain connection, then it's going to put us in a better position to prevent a lot of those health issues that so many tend to have. Raise your hand. Just put a 1 in the chat or sick in the chat if you've had a family member this year that has had some kind of ailment or gotten sick or even come down maybe with a chronic disease. Just put sick in the chat if that's you. I know I've had friends and family members recently, last couple of years. So we want to prevent that as much as possible. And I think, dear, with this knowledge that you're going to be dropping tonight, yep, I hear you, Janet, is we're going to be in a better position to prevent or recover from chronic illness. So, dear, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Is there a way to get rid of this?
Oh, I don't. I think it's going to just stay there. Oh, okay.
It's distracting.
We can do this, and you'll still have your slides, okay? So we're just pulling up the slides, everyone. Give me a second. And she'll get started. Okay, your video is not shown, right?
No, not yet. But
That's
where's
fine.
the shared screen option?
I'm trying to do that now. We've got a slightly different tool here. So I'm trying to figure out how to share. Give me a second, dear. The slide. What I may need to do, can I pull your, oh, this is what I can do. There we go. And can we bring you in too? I think we can do it this way and get me out and bring you on. And now I should be, let's see if we can, just give me a second honey, while I put, wow, let's see how I can put you in the screen with the camera.
Is this the first time you're trying this tool?
I'm not as versed in it as the other one. Let's put it that way. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, honey. I know you don't mind presenting this way, and I'll just show your face when I see you going to a specific point. Okay. So you can go ahead and get started.
Can everyone hear me? Put a yes in the chat box, please.
Yes, if you can hear her.
Can all of you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
yes.
perfect. Excellent. Now I'm talking through here, not yours.
Yeah, you've been
Okay.
on yours.
And they can see the screen. You all can see the screen, correct? Okay. Well, welcome everyone again to True Health Tuesday. Some of you have already been on our presentations, at least the ones that I've done on brain health. And now we're going over our third portion of our third topic, I should say, covering the gut and how the gut is connected to the brain. That's this relationship. So another aspect of improving brain health is by optimizing gut health. Oh, sorry here. This was not allowing me to switch to the next slide. No, it was not allowing me to switch to the next slide.
Are you able to switch now?
No. Forgive us, everyone. This is a new tool, so it's not working. Why isn't it allowing me to go to the next slide?
Yeah, it's working.
Yeah, but it didn't zoom. I'm not able to zoom in. It was zoomed.
Like this, you mean?
Yeah, but it's not allowing me to. Now it's blocking the screen.
How about we don't zoom in? And just ignore this thing, okay?
Okay. Well, I wanted them to have a larger
No, they
view.
can see.
Okay.
It's full screen for us.
Why isn't it going to the next slide? Okay. Go. So I like to start out conversations or presentations with some story. I'm going to tell several stories in today's presentation just to illustrate certain points. Meet Kimberly. Kimberly is a 42-year-old female that I worked with who had severe panic attack. She was one of those individuals who would have panic attacks on the freeway uh, whenever she drove past any large moving vehicle, whether it's a bus or a truck, a van, anything that was massive. It was a really hard thing for her. She was not able to drive in peace, and sometimes the panic attacks were quite severe. She would have to pull over, and she was not able to really get to work, and that was a huge thing for her. So one of the things that I do that is I think is really important when we're trying to assess any kind of dysfunction in a body is to really look back in time in a person's history and try to identify, which is kind of what I did as a CSI and scientist, looking at the evidence, going way back in time into a person's history and trying to identify why did this even happen? Why did she have panic attacks? And one of the things that was quite interesting, which we'll get into in this discussion later in the presentation, but one of the things that was really important in her case was that she had a cesarean. She was birthed via C-section, cesarean C-section or C-section, and she was not breastfed. Okay, she had chronic upper respiratory infections, ear infections. It was quite the ordeal for her when she was growing up. And Charles, my slides are gone. So she had quite a significant GI history, a lot of gut problems, gas, bloating, irritable bowel syndrome, just a constipation. There was a lot of gut problems going on. And one of the things that I hope that you all take from the presentations that I've delivered is that health is very comprehensive. Okay. So if there's anything going on with the body, we have to look at everything else that's likely driving it. And so one of the things that we talked about in previous presentations were the nutrients that the brain needs. And so I did a nutrient panel on her, looked at her oxidative stress, looked at her EPA, DHA levels, looked at her vitamins, her minerals, her amino acids, because it's important for brain health. I also did a comprehensive stool analysis and peristaltology to look at what was going on in the gut. Okay. And so this is just a background of what was going on with her. And I'll talk about more of her case as I go through the presentation. So today we're going to go over the gut-brain axis. What is this? And how the microbiome impacts the nervous system. Now, I didn't want to overwhelm anyone, so I'm going to make it a very abbreviated presentation because it can be a lot, and I want to make sure that this is something that people can take and it not be overly saturated. In the future, I'll talk about strategies for optimizing gut health in the microbiome because the microbiome is extremely important. And Hippocrates actually knew this many centuries ago. The father of modern medicine says that all disease begins in the gut. And this is something that one of the ways that I practice in terms of trying to assess gut function, or not gut function, but just overall disease and trying to optimize the body, I start with the gut, because there's just so much that the digestive system can tell us in terms of how our overall bodies are performing. So that's where I started with Kimberly. I looked at her gut, and there was a lot of information that I got from her. But we're going to see why this is important. So when we think of the gut-brain axis, there's this bidirectional pathway between the brain and the digestive system. So the brain is able to send information to the digestive system, and the digestive system is able to feedback information back to the central nervous system. So they're communicating with each other. And the brain is going to tell the digestive system to enhance motility, promote secretion, delivery of your nutrients, absorption of your nutrients, even influencing the microbiome. The microbiome is able to feedback and send information to the brain that influences neurotransmitter production and synthesis, and play a role in anxiety and in modulating stress and mood and behavior. How many of you, let me ask this question, how many of you have ever been in a situation where you were nervous and you felt it in your stomach? I'm sure all of us have been in situations where we're nervous, we have a bit of anxiety, and your stomach starts to turn. Okay, I'm going to get a little bit graphic here, and I don't want to lose anyone, but I just want to give you a heads up. I'm going to share a story, and if you're a person who's sensitive to certain information, by all means, mute this part of the presentation. But I'm sharing a story of something that was okay. I'm sharing a story of something that was something I personally experienced, and I think we can all we can all identify with this, because we've been in situations before where we've had some kind of state of anxiety or stress, and you could feel it in your stomach. Your stomach is actually turning. You might have abdominal pain. Charles, this is not showing. So here's the example I wanted to give. Okay. Many of you probably already know my background as a forensic scientist. And part of the training that I had to do with the sheriff's department was to conduct autopsies. That was part of the training. And I worked directly with the forensic pathologists. These are the second highest trained physicians. And there's so much that they do, and forensic scientists and other investigators do, in order to process the scene, reconstruct events of the past in order to make sense of what was happening, what happened to this individual. And I would never forget the typical day for me when I went into that place, when I went into the coroner's. I had to sit down with the doctors. And one of the reasons why the sheriff's department, oh, wow, what happened? One of the reasons why the sheriff's department that I worked at required this was because they wanted to desensitize us. It's a lot that we see, and we're exposed to, and you have to get used to it. So I went in 9 a.m. The typical thing that we would do is talk with the doctors and find out what is going on for today. What are the cases for today? And so the doctor will tell me, hey, we have 3 cuts, and 3 cuts is the terminology that means we have a full autopsy. We have 3 full autopsies, or we might have a partial, maybe a femur or a pelvis showed up on shore at a beach or something, and we have to identify if it's a male or female victim. So this particular day, they told me, they gave me the police report. Can all of you hear me, by the way? Because someone's saying they can't hear me. So the doctor told me, gave me the police report. I read the police report, and as soon as I read the police report, my stomach turned upside down. It was unbelievable. Unbelievable. I just read a police report, and it was telling me that my case for the morning was a decomp. And this guy had been in his apartment for 6 months dead. And so my stomach started turning, and the only information that entered my body was just something I read. I read a police report, and it was unbelievable. I remember I had to gown up. We typically gown up in layers of clothing. I had 5 layers of gloves on, a face shield, a whole bunny suit. That's how we conduct autopsies. And he was actually a full autopsy. He was a full autopsy, which meant I had to do an external and internal examination with the doctors of this patient, or at that point, he's decedent. And I only just got information from the police report that he had been decomposed in his room, his apartment, for 6 months. And so I hadn't even got him out of the freezer yet. And I literally wanted to go in a bathroom and throw up, because I knew my mind was telling me, just painting a picture for me as to what this was going to look like. And so my stomach started turning, and every single time I went in that place, my stomach would turn. Every time I got off for work, my stomach would turn. I couldn't eat my food because the job was just so just quite interesting. Quite interesting job. And it did eventually desensitize me. I was able to get through that part of the training because the science was so amazing, being able to collect physical evidence from the decedents and biological evidence, trace evidence, like paint chips and fibers from using duct tape to collect fibers from the decedents in order to collect evidence and submit that to the crime lab. But the visceral response was what really got me. And at the time, I had no idea that the brain was connected to the digestive system. It really shut me down in terms of my ability, the desire to eat. My brain said, no, 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 we are not eating under these conditions because this is not healthy. And you are not going to digest your food and absorb your nutrients because you are in a state of stress, and we are going to your body's not in a rest and digest state. So you're not going to eat. And I did not eat. And so that's when, and of course, now I know there was this relationship between the brain and the gut. So how is this happening? How is all of this happening? In order to really go into that, we need to go into the microbiome. It's such an amazing field of study. There's so much information, thousands of publications now that are really showing us, revealing more information about the microbiome and its relationship to the host, and its relationship to the immune system, and its relationship to the intestinal barrier and the blood-brain barrier, which we talked about, 3 weeks ago, I believe that was. The microbiome is a very, very, very fascinating area of research. DNA sequencing technology has allowed us to see so much more information about how the microbiome is such an important aspect of health. And there are now there's research looking into manipulating the microbiome to develop new therapeutics to help with irritable bowel disease or to help with neuropsychiatric diseases and even autism. In some places across the world, people use fecal transplantation to help with autism. And so there's this really, really fascinating area. And we're going to go into how the microbiome is able to communicate with the brain. So just an overview. I mean, the microbiome topic can just be a whole presentation by itself. But for simplicity and overview, when I mention a microbiome, it's really a collection of all the organisms that inhabit the body. And we actually have organisms that are the microbiome of the skin, microbiome of the mouth, and the gut. And we have 300 to 1,000 different species of bacteria that reside in the colon, and they play a very important role in the colon. So when we think of the microbiome, in particular the gut, it is really a metabolic factory. These bacteria are so important, and the molecules that they produce. When you eat fiber, they ferment on that fiber, and these bacteria are able to produce neuropeptides, our serotonin, our GABA, dopamine, and glutamate. We have a group of bacteria called the estrobiome, and these are types of bacteria that play a role in helping metabolize estrogen, circulating estrogen. And this is particularly important for people who have hormone-sensitive conditions. We want to think of the gut here. And this is what I mean about how the gut is impacting other parts of the body. And that's the source, that's an aspect of health you want to at least explore, because the microbiome can impact a lot of different areas of the human body. And we kind of touched on this in my first presentation of LPS, endotoxin from gram-negative bacteria. And how it can play a role in cardiovascular disease. And so, yeah, we have a group of bacteria that play a role in estrogen metabolism, and that's amazing. They also play a role in vitamin synthesis. So they're able to produce B12, biotin, and vitamin K. So the bacteria are producing nutrients for us, and we can benefit from these nutrients. They also play a role in toxin metabolism. So over 50% of xenobiotics and compounds that are found outside the body, environmental chemicals, toxins that are coming into the body, as well as hormone metabolism, as I previously mentioned. Over 50% of that is carried out by your microbes. And that's really, really fascinating. And that's something that we should appreciate. And given their role in the digestive system, we need to take care of them. The microbiome is able to break down plant fiber. So as I mentioned, they ferment on fiber. And so this is one of the reasons why having fiber in the diet is extremely important. From the fermentation of fiber, they're able to produce short-chain fatty acids, and these small molecules, fatty acid molecules, that we're going to see later how they're very important in brain health. The microbiome modulates the immune system, and this is something really, really important, because, listen, the development of the immune system starts early in life. From the time that you are born, the baby is born supposedly, it's not always the case, but the baby is supposed to be born vaginally. Babies that are born vaginally are able, they tend to be inoculated. They are inoculated with the vaginal flora, the vaginal bacteria that tend to be lactobacillus. And that strain of bacteria modulates the immune system. Okay. There's a communication between the gut microbiome and our immune system. Babies that are born via C-section, they tend to have more staph, more bacteria that's found on the skin. And that is obviously not ideal because these microbes don't really benefit the immune system. And so you kind of want the development of the immune system early in life to start from the way the baby is born and via vaginal delivery. Okay. And this is one of the things that was picked up on Kimberly. She wasn't birthed vaginally. She was birthed via C-section. So you see early in life, there's some kind of dysregulation of her gut microbiome. Okay. And that has a downstream effect. As if you remember, if you recall, I mentioned she had a history during her childhood of upper respiratory infections, chronic upper respiratory infections, and a lot of GI symptoms and eczema as well. Okay. So these bacteria are in the immune system. This really starts early in life. And it's another reason why nursing baby is really important, because you get those healthy microbes there. So gut microbes may shape neural development, modulate neurotransmission, and affect behavior, and thereby contribute to the pathogenesis and or progression of many neurodevelopmental, neuropsychiatric, and neurological conditions. But how? How does that happen? How are the gut microbes able to do that? Well, there are several mechanisms by which the microbes are able to exert their effects on the nervous system. One is they directly release their short chain fatty acids, their small molecules directly into the bloodstream. And if it's in circulation, then it has direct access to the brain. The other way is that it's able to directly bind to the vagus nerve. And this is why that you see this connection, this axis, the brain and the gut. The vagus nerve is the longest nerve in the body, and it connects to the wall of the enteric nervous system of the digestive system. And the gut microbes are able to directly impact or interact with the vagus nerve. And once it gets information, the vagus nerve receives information from the gut microbes, it sends that information back to the nervous system. The other way is that it not only have direct influence on the nervous system, but it can indirectly influence the nervous system by activating cells within the wall of the digestive tract to send out hormones that can directly influence the nervous system. And lastly, it can directly interact with the immune system and modulate inflammation. Short-chain fatty acids might directly influence the brain by reinforcing blood-brain barrier integrity, modulating neurotransmission, influencing levels of neurotrophic factors, and promoting memory consolidation. This is important. These short-chain fatty acid, these molecules, metabolites that are being released from the bacteria, are able to bind into the receptors inside the blood-brain barrier. And if you remember, I think that was about 4 weeks ago, I talked about the blood-brain barrier and how important it is for brain health. And in order to keep the brain healthy, we want to keep the blood-brain barrier intact and healthy as well. And short-chain fatty acids are able to modulate that. They're able to help upregulate the tight junctions inside the blood-brain barrier. And it's a similar mechanism that happens in the gut too. The short-chain fatty acids are able to upregulate the tight junctions that are inside the enterocytes of the digestive system to help keep that barrier intact. And it's really important that we have this very intact structure in the digestive system and the brain to allow things that are not or chemicals or molecules that are not supposed to enter bloodstream or the brain, prevent them from coming in. But the short chain fatty acids are able to modulate that, and it plays a huge important role. And so how do you get them? We're going to talk about that, but we want to keep in mind that the microbes are producing these metabolites from dietary fiber that are directly influencing the structure of the blood-brain barrier, and it's also inside the digestive system. So hopefully you all can see this. So when you consume dietary fiber and complex fiber, you have the guts in the microbes in the gut, in the colon. The proximal colon is where most of your short chain fatty acids are found. And there are three types of short chain fatty acids that are produced: acetate, propionate, and butyrate. And butyrate is very important, and it's important because of the role it plays in acting as a fuel source. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. So when the short chain fatty acids are produced, how are they being transported to the brain? How do they get there? Well, there are several mechanisms. I talked about some of the mechanisms, how the gut, the microbes interact with how they're able to directly influence or indirectly influence the nervous system. But the short chain fatty acids in particular are able to bind to receptors and transporters that are on the enterocytes. And the enterocytes are the cells of the colon. They're able to bind and be taken up by the enterocytes. And when they get taken up, they can either go directly into the bloodstream and have direct access to the central nervous system, or they're taken up by transporters. However way they get in, once they get into the system, they're able to influence the immune system. They're able to influence the liver, the pancreas, and also they're able to facilitate the release of hormones that can directly influence the brain. And this is something really important. Short chain fatty acids can influence, as I mentioned, the immune system, modulate the immune system. But once they get into the brain, they can interact with the microglia cells, which are the immune residents of the nervous system. They're able to interact with them, and depending on what the type of interaction is, these microglia can be activated to secrete more pro-inflammatory cytokines, which promotes neural inflammation. And that's what we don't want. When the short chain fatty acids get in, they're able to also affect the blood-brain barrier and help to, again, upregulate those tight junctions within that blood-brain barrier to keep it fully intact and maintain its integrity, because it's really, really important. Short chain fatty acids are able to modulate neurotransmitters, glutamate, glutamine, GABA within the hypothalamus, and they're able to activate tryptophan 5-hydroxylase 1, which is an enzyme that plays a role in the synthesis of serotonin, and it also plays a role in modulating the activity of tyrosine hydroxylase, which plays a role in dopamine and noradrenaline and adrenaline production. So short chain fatty acids play a very important role in the production of our neurotransmitters by acting on particular enzymes that are responsible for producing these neurotransmitters. As I mentioned, they serve as energy source for colonocytes. So this is why they're very important in the colon, because they can act. So I kind of showed how they influence the nervous system, but they can act locally inside the digestive system as well, and serve as an energy source for the colonocytes. And colonocytes are the cells of the colon and they help protect against bowel cancer. This is interesting. So I see on stool analysis of patients with bowel cancer, they tend to have abnormal underproduction of short chain fatty acids. And in this, the butyrate in particular is extremely important for the colonal sites. And they maintain, short chain fatty acids maintain that gut integrity. That's somewhat what I previously discussed, and that the tight junctions that are in between the enterocytes, they're able to modulate that and make sure that the intestinal barrier is kept intact. They also play a role in GI motility and contractility. So they're very, very important for your digestive function. And we have to appreciate that and appreciate the microbiome for that reason. And I should also mention during that time when I ran Kimberly's test, she did not have enough of the butyrate producing bacteria, nor did she have a healthy amount of these short chain fatty acids. There's now evidence that depression is connected to microglial activation. And remember, I mentioned how the microbes can, the short chain fatty acids can actually play a role in microglial activation. Microbes could be acting through the metabolites they produce to activate microglia, the immune cells of the brain. Okay. And in particular, it's the short chain fatty acids that the microbes produce that can activate the microglia. So here you have, and at the bottom, you see what is called dysbiosis. Dysbiosis is an imbalance of the microbial community, the gut microbiome. And depending on the type of resident bacteria that you have in a colon, they can either be disease promoting and produce more endotoxins that such as LPS. And if that is released, we talked about this early on in 4 weeks ago, LPS play a role. It can cross the blood, it can cross into the circulatory system from getting through the tight junction. So if you have intestinal permeability, the LPS can enter the bloodstream via the leaky gut. And once it gets in, it's able to activate all kinds of inflammatory reactions. And so it can increase inflammatory cytokines. And this is all coming from the gut. And once the LPS gets into the brain, it can activate the microglia as well. If you don't have adequate amounts of short chain fatty acids, then you're producing more of these toxins from bacteria that are not beneficial, okay? And we call them bad bacteria. If you don't have enough of the good guys, then you're not going to produce enough of the short chain fatty acids. And you'll have more bacterial toxins that are activating these inflammatory responses. And then you start to have microglial activation, and that downstream activates a downstream cascade of inflammatory reactions promoting neural inflammation. And keep in mind, this is coming from the gut. This is the gut communicating through these either short chain fatty acids or bacterial toxins such as LPS. Okay. And this can enter the brain and activate immune cells of the brain. And when they get activated, the microglia can promote neural inflammation. And if you recall, several weeks back, maybe that was 3 weeks ago, I talked about how neural inflammation is somewhat the basis behind some of the conditions that we see in mental health and in other conditions affecting the brain. It's some neural inflammation happening. And what is produced in the gut can modulate that process. It could either fuel neural inflammation, or it can downregulate it by producing more metabolites from beneficial bacteria that are able to translocate into the brain, the nervous system, and modulate the immune response there. So dysbiosis, what is it? There's an imbalance of these bacteria, but there are 3 types of dysbiosis. And with Kimberly, she did not have the beneficial bacteria. So the beneficial bacteria are those bacteria that are going to produce those short chain fatty acids. And so if you don't have enough of the beneficial guys, you have dysbiosis. If you don't have, if you have a loss of the diversity, because these are this microbial system is a diverse set of a diverse system. So we want that microbial diversity so that we can benefit from the different types of metabolites that the bacteria producing. If you have an overgrowth of potentially pathogenic bacteria, you will have dysbiosis. So we kind of, we want a healthy digestive system. We want a healthy microbiome. We don't want the overproliferation of fungi. We don't want the overproliferation of other types of organisms that can release products from their metabolism and allow these products to enter the bloodstream and have direct access to the nervous system. So gut dysbiosis is connected to a number of things. This is the second to last slide. Gut dysbiosis is connected to Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's, multiple sclerosis, depression, anxiety, pain, stress, and it's connected to cardiovascular, impacting our endocrine system, the gut itself, conditions affecting the gut, irritable bowel syndrome, inflammatory bowel disease, ulcerative colitis. There's so much that the gut tells us in terms of our health. And we have to appreciate and understand that the microbiome can produce, depending on how healthy it is, produce metabolites that are protective, those short chain fatty acids that we talked about, or other metabolites such as LPS, which tends to be more inflammatory. So what I want you to take from this, and before I go to the last slide, this here is important. Compared to healthy individuals, major depressive disorder and bipolar disorder patients show significant changes in gut microbial diversity and composition. Okay, and I want to stress this too. Okay, listen. I am not saying that if you fix the gut, all your mental health problems will go away. What I am saying is that we need to appreciate that when there's anything going on with the body, we want to consider the gut. We want to look at other aspects of the person's health. A lot of times if a person has a condition, the condition is only looked at and nothing else. The condition is only treated. But there's so much more that's going on with a person's health aside from just the disease that they have. There's something else going on. And what we're seeing here with mental health and just overall brain health, we can have an appreciation for the gut microbiome, and that's perhaps an area to explore if there is any kind of mental health problem. Decreased short chain fatty acid producing bacteria and increased pro-inflammatory bacteria, okay, may be related to chronic low-grade systemic inflammation in patients with mood disorders. Decreased short chain fatty acids. These short chain fatty acids are very, very important. Very, very important. And we should consider gut health when we're considering brain health. It's really, really important. So what I want you to take from this, when there's any type of brain condition, anything that's affecting your mood, If you have anxiety, like Kimberly was able to successfully come off all her medications. And it wasn't just from optimizing her gut health. We worked on so many other things. And this is what I'm saying. We have to look at the body as a whole. Whenever there's any dysfunction, we want to look at it through the lens of systems biology, where we're looking at multiple systems and how they influence one another. And so to assess gut health, you want to look at the gut microbiome and its metabolites. Look at the beneficial bacteria. If there is any dysbiosis, we want to correct it and balance the microbiome so that we can produce more of those. We can create an environment that will help facilitate the production of short chain fatty acids. And another thing that's important is that, again, I mentioned it's not just gut health. I did a nutrient panel on Kimberly, and she was deficient in EPA and DHA in particular. She had a lot of oxidative stress. There was low amounts of B vitamins and magnesium that play a very important role in affecting the brain. Okay, we saw this weeks ago, how magnesium plays a role, how B vitamins, B6, all of these play a role in the mitochondria, which plays a role in brain health as well. How do you support the production of short chain fatty acids? Increase polyphenolic compounds. You definitely want to increase that in a diet. The bacteria that produce more of the short chain fatty acids like berries. They like berries. And here's the thing, when you have gut dysbiosis, let me share this. Your gut bacteria are what you eat. Okay? So whatever you eat, you are preferentially selecting certain types of microbes over others. So some bacteria have an advantage over other bacteria depending on what your dietary intake of food is. If you eat more of a standard American diet, you're going to have microbes that love that Western diet. Okay? And it makes sense because you need them in order to break down your food. If you eat more plant-based, well, you're going to have more microbes that like those complex fibers. And it just so happens, I'm sad to say, but it just so happens those are the types of bacteria that tend to be more health promoting. That's just how the digestive system works. So increasing dietary fiber and getting your dark green leafy vegetables in, 9 servings of vegetables, if you can get that daily. You want to make sure that you're feeding the microbiome and you're shifting the microbiome towards health promoting type microbes that are going to help facilitate the production of these health promoting small molecule compounds released from bacteria that are able to directly and indirectly influence the nervous system. Okay. And so we're going to talk about how to improve gut health because it's really important, and that will be in future discussions. Okay. I hope this was not too much information. I tried to make it not overwhelming, but yeah.
Honey, I think that was perfect. Let's make we have the right screen up. You still sharing your screen?
No.
Well, I think that the amount. Don't worry about that, honey. I had to block some of those people. When you all get on, you'll have to. Let me just put me in the screen so it doesn't look weird. In the future, you'll have to subscribe. Make sure you're subscribed so that you can chat if you're interested in chatting. because we have some robots that are trying to take over sometimes, so we have to block them. And the only way to do it is by preventing them from chatting. So you'll have to be a subscriber to chat. Well, I think everybody enjoyed that presentation. Thank you, honey. That was a good start. And what's coming up next time?
We're going to talk about gut health and how to improve gut health for overall health.
Okay, diving into the gut health. There was a question that came up before I get to that question. Let me let you all know that in the chat, you'll see, and it'll also be in the description too, you'll see a link for a checklist, and that checklist will serve as notes for what you heard today. And so if you want kind of a take home, a little short one pager from today's discussion, make sure you click on the download to get that checklist. The question, honey, was around pregnancy, and it was, shouldn't we consider doing? Okay, okay, you guys can't hear very well again. Are you on over here? I'm muted on my side. Honey, I'm gonna take off. It could be that my machine is doing that to you.
Where are the questions? Am I on mute?
No, it's just one question that I had. I don't think you're on mute, but it was choppy earlier. I think it's because I brought my machine in the room, so I'm going to take it out. But the question was,
what I'm asking.
Shouldn't we consider our health before getting pregnant? That's the question.
Absolutely. Can you all hear me? I just want to make sure that the sound is good.
I think the sound is improved now. Let's see. It's choppy, honey. Okay. Well, audio is choppy. I tell you what, we're going to get you an answer to that question. But for now, okay, Jeanette's saying she can hear. We've got a few people saying that they can hear.
Is this new or old?
If you scroll to the bottom, then it'll be new. Yeah. Okay, it's good.
Okay, everyone can hear.
The question, just to reset, was, don't we need to consider our general health before pregnancy?
Okay. Absolutely. I usually recommend for people considering getting pregnant to do a 6-month preparation protocol. It's really important. And the reason being is that infertility is on the rise. A lot of people are having infertility problems, and it's due to our environment. There's a lot of toxicity in our environment through our food, our water, the things that we put on our bodies. And it's affecting the female reproductive axis. It's affecting our hormone, our endocrine system. It's also affecting male sperm count and sperm motility. Okay, so this is a big problem.
I thought all those kind of problems were just about the mothers, honey. That doesn't have anything to do with the gentleman, right?
That's a misconception. Unfortunately, a lot of people think that when a couple has problems with bearing children, it's the woman, but it might actually be the male. Yeah.
Yikes. All right. Well, that's good, honey. Thank you all for joining True Health Tuesday. They said that they really enjoyed the presentation. The information was clearly presented, so not as many questions today. But thank you for answering that one. Thank you for the presentation, honey, and thank you all for making True Health Tuesdays all that it is. Keep in touch. Make sure if you need to reach out to either Dr. Schwelt or my wife here, you can email them at tht@livingmanna.church. That's tht at livingmanna.church if you have any other questions that come up during the week. Well, for now, we'll say goodbye and God bless. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.